Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear Can everyone hear? Great. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm Hilary, Sloan. I work with ShopStyle. I'm based in New York City, and happy to be in Paris. And I'm here today with Daria, and you're gonna have to say your last name for me.
Shapovalova. I know it's difficult to pronounce it. So I'm here with Hilary, and I'm the creative director of Mercedes-Benz Key Fashion Days, co-founder of More Dash Showroom and Key Fashion Institute, and I'm acting here as an influencer. But I would say that I will talk about how being an influencer helped me to develop my business. But first, it's Hilary, who is speaking about influencers' business from the business point of view, which is a very important thing to know and to start with.
Yeah.
So Hilary, passing you the mic.
Thank you. Here's the. Essentially, what ShopStyle does and who we are. ShopStyle at its core is a search engine for fashion. So if you come onto shopstyle.com and search for instance, black boots, you're going to find the best that the web has to offer across 30,000 brands. We have 22 million products, and we have over 1,400 retailer relationships globally. So if you're searching for those black booties, you can sort. You can sort based on price, size, style, etc. We have over 18 million worldwide shoppers. We have localized sites for the United States, for Germany, for France, Japan, and Australia. But what we also do is we provide the tools for fashion influencers across the globe to monetize their content. So they're able to take links from the tools that we have to place those links on their blog and social platforms. So that way, when users make purchases and are inspired to purchase from those channels, the influencers make money, and it helps to support those entrepreneurs as they grow their businesses. So influencers are now an essential part of marketing, and that at this point is really undisputed by marketing globally. There's been a huge shift over the past 5 years where fashion bloggers were considered outsiders to the fashion industry and now are incredibly important to making influence happen. So when I think of an influencer, I don't necessarily think of how many followers does someone have on Instagram or what does their blog look like or any of those things. I think, does someone have the power to change someone's decision when they're thinking about making a purchase? Does someone have the power to inspire someone to make a different decision? That is what influence is. Influencers are so powerful because in today's day and age, as we know, we're all bombarded with advertisements. Every magazine that you open, you're walking down the street in the billboards. I'm in New York City, you walk through Times Square and it's just one big advertisement at this point. People have become immune to seeing brand advertisements in their lives. So how as a brand do you communicate your message when you're wanting to share what it is your brand has to offer and tell your brand story? This is where influencers are incredibly important to this ecosystem. People trust people, and influencers are people like you and me. There's a perceived incredibly personal connection that happens between influencers and their communities. When you think about influencers and probably those bloggers that you follow, you're maybe watching their Snapchat, you're watching their Instagram stories, you're just even looking at the photos that they have on their blog. You understand their lives. You know what their children look like. You maybe even know what their homes look like. That personal connection means that when I talk about a brand, if I'm an influencer, there's a level of trust that a billboard can't create. So that is what gives marketers the ability to leverage influencers in a totally unique way to any other kind of advertising. To that end, I think that one thing to think about is that to go back to that advertising standpoint, before the advent of fashion influencers, when people would think about making a purchase, you would be looking at a magazine and you might be inspired to purchase something. You might even see something in a magazine ad that would either inspire you to go into that store or go onto that website. It's now completely changed. You'll see that outfit on your favorite influencer on Instagram. You will then maybe be influenced to go look in store. And then from there, you'll see more street style, emphasizing that trend or that style. And then after is when the search and finally the checkout happens. And that change is just, what we see at ShopStyle across those 18 million searches every single month is that the purchase funnel, the path to purchase has just been irrevocably changed. influencers are so trusted by shoppers that we did a research study together with Pop Sugar and Thompson, and we found that people are 22 times more likely to make a purchase based on what an influencer says versus an average consumer. We found that 82% of consumers reported that they were more likely to follow a recommendation made by an influencer than any other way. And most impressive, 92% of consumers trust influencers more than traditional advertisements, but even more interesting, more than celebrity. So, again, 5-6 years ago, a brand might spend a tremendous amount of money to bring on an incredibly famous person, Brad Pitt, something like this, an international celebrity to endorse their brand. That doesn't work anymore. And influencers, so what brands are doing is they're essentially taking their brand and building communities within the influencer network, so that way their audience, all of these influencers' audiences, become exposed to their brand. We also saw some really, really interesting statistics to further prove that point. We watched 2 of our influencers that use ShopStyle tools. We watched what they posted during Fashion Week, and we tracked those trends on ShopStyle. One of our influencers, Hello Fashion, posted a military jacket. In the following week, we saw a 92% increase in searches for military jackets on ShopStyle.com. Now, this is not even on the influencer site. So what's happening is the influencers are not just directly influencing sales, but indirectly. They're sending people in store. They're sending people to search other places online. So when brands think about why they're working with influencers, there's a lot of reasons. And I wanted to just touch on this because I've talked a lot about sales right now. But I think it's really important to know that the most important reasons that brands partner with influencers is around brand advocacy and awareness. Again, we're all immune to those advertisements that you see in magazines and on billboards. So this advocacy and awareness is so much more valuable than anything else that we have right now as a tool as marketers. And when you look at these percentages, like, it's incredibly high. The top half of this chart is around reaching new audiences, advocacy, awareness, share of voice, and improving. And sales doesn't happen until 5th on the way down. So I think it's really important to know it goes so far beyond just the sales individually. So brands are making social influence work for them. I'll talk a little bit about how they do it, since that's the perspective of what we do every day, because this might be interesting for you. One thing to remember, and Dari and I were just speaking about this, is for brands, it's not like buying an ad in a magazine. You can't say, this is what I want it to look like, this is how I'm going to style it, this is going to be the verbiage that it's going to say. You lose a little bit of that control, because the most important thing is to give the influencers the ability to be authentic, so that way they can continue to communicate to their audiences and build those relationships with their community. So as a brand, you need to define your goals. Is it sales? And if so, when you choose your influencers, look for people who have proven conversion rates. And using the data, ShopStyle uses data constantly when we're making recommendations for those choices. We also always recommend thinking outside of the megastars. One thing that I think we've all found at this point is that the megastars are ultimately becoming celebrities, and the celebrities are ultimately less influential. So there's this really nice sweet spot in the area of micro-influence, which is a huge buzzword right now in the marketing industry. To me, that's like up to like 300,000 or 400,000 followers on Instagram, or page views on the blog. They're not megastars, they're not millions of followers, but those are the people who are really, really still communicating with their audiences in this very authentic way. And then from there, once we make those recommendations and work with a brand, we analyze all of those results, and we come back and we make more recommendations for what is next. So that way we continue to engage those influencers, find new audiences, new influencers, and re-engage those influencers where it works the most. So I've talked a lot about sales, and I just wanted to share a few more stats. We worked with a multi-brand retailer last year across, I want to say 7 micro-influencers over a 6-month period. During that 6-month period, we saw a 65% increase in traffic from our influencer channel. And what we found, and again to touch on this, traffic is just as important as sales because it's eyes on your brand. So it's a really important stat. And if you think about what happens with influencers. Influencers not only influence their own audiences to make purchases and clicking decisions about where they'll go on the web, they also influence other influencers. So if I'm an influencer and I'm just starting out and I really want to make a career as an influencer, I'm looking at what my heroes are posting and where they're linking to and what they're wearing. And I'm making those decisions, and then I'm communicating with my audience from there. So it's the sphere of influence keeps growing, and there's sort of this cumulative effect of engaging with influencers as a marketer. Excuse me. We saw a 250% increase in sales during that 6-month period from our influencer channel, specifically from the sponsored content. And sponsored content typically is less effective than organic content, and it still drove that much of an increase. And then specifically Something Navy, the influencer pictured right here, who is getting out of micro-influencer and getting into mega stardom, but even at her level, she still had a 3 times growth of her referred sales to that retailer during that 6-month period.
Can I ask you a question
Yeah, of course.
about micro-influencers? So
Yeah.
until when do you think there are still micro-influencers in terms of numbers? So it's under the million?
So you know what? I actually think of it in terms of engagement. Did everyone hear the question? The question was, what constitutes a micro-influencer? Like, under what level is a micro-influencer? And I don't actually like to think of it as numbers. I like to think of it as engagement. And I think Something Navy is a really good example. She has a million followers on social, more than that. But her audience is so engaged that you were still able to see this 3x return, whereas another megastar might not drive that same growth. I think across the board, the only thing that matters at this point in the sphere of influence is engagement.
I see. Understood. Thank you.
Yeah. So then thinking about, what's happening next. So people are shopping off of these influencers' blogs. They're making huge names for themselves. They have huge platforms on Instagram. They're shopping. And what we're seeing is that influencers' content is going to start living beyond the social platforms that we know and love. So Instagram, YouTube, those are all tried and true. But what we see happening in the tech space is people innovating toward how can we make television shoppable? How can we bring influencers into the retail space? How can we bring this experience to be 360 so that way we can leverage those influencers to continue to drive sales and brand awareness and advocacy and new spaces? And that's what we're really looking forward to seeing. We've tried testing a few things where we've created tools where people can like screenshot and then go shopping off of Snapchat and videos and things like that. And we had one influencer. She said, I'm only going to post this mascara on Snapchat. I'm not posting it anywhere else. I want to see what happens so we can isolate specifically what happens with this one mascara. In one day, she sold 750 tubes of one mascara off of Snapchat. So I think that when we think about like where influence is going, it's so important to think beyond the blog, beyond Instagram, even beyond Snapchat. We have to put marketers and people like me need to innovate to ensure that we're able to put influencers where the audiences are, to continue to build those relationships and communities so that way everyone gets the benefit. And I've been speaking a lot through the lens of a marketer and a salesperson and even a brand, but I'll take a step back and just say, as a consumer, I don't know where, I don't know what I want to buy. And I don't know where to look anymore for what I want to buy. I don't really read magazines anymore. Who has time for that? I get my inspiration from fashion influencers. I get my inspiration from looking at social channels and watching YouTube videos. And I think that I'm very much the norm of this generation of shoppers. So that's what we're looking to next.
I see. Hilary, shall I ask you all my questions now or after I speak? Cici, now. Okay, so it will be a short interview. Actually, I started as a journalist, my career, so I'm getting back to my roots because I prepared some questions to Hilary, which I really wanted to ask her, and maybe it will be useful for you too. So, Hilary, I've been into business for 12 years, and basically the whole notion of social influencers, it started like 6-7 years ago, I think, with the rise of Instagram. And how do you think the role of social influencers changed within these 7 years, and how would you describe the nearest future for the social influencers? Because I think there are a lot of talks on how it can develop.
And I think I touched on this a little bit earlier, but 6 years ago, fashion influencers were not invited to Fashion Week. Like that, this is a huge shift, right? The moment that we started to get fashion influencers invited, not just to Fashion Week, but sitting front row at Fashion Week, that was a huge shift. And that was, I want to say, 4 or 5 years ago, where it really, now when you go to Fashion Week, I'm sure you see this too, it's influencers in the front row, much more so than celebrities. And that shift, I think, allowed influencers to like be on the inside of fashion, sort of, you know, closer to what you do. I mean, they sort of did it in the reverse way that you did. They built a social platform and then got invited to Fashion Week. You were in business at Fashion Week and then became an influencer. But I think that there's a correlation there of that's where it really shifted, and bloggers became insiders. In terms of what I think is happening next, video. People are now attached and engaged with these influencers, and they want more. And the staged, highly curated photos on Instagram, we're becoming as tone deaf to those as we are to an advertisement in Vogue. You can't fake a video. If you're good on camera, you will be like, your audience will grow and engage with you more. But if you're a dud on video, people lose interest. So what's so challenging and interesting and exciting to be an influencer in this time is, if you think of it, you have to be a jack of all trades. You are the editor, you are the creative director, you are the publicist, you are the PR agent, you're the talent, you are the, you know, editor-in-chief, you are the creative director of video. Like you're an entire production company, you're an entire media company in one person. And then maybe you have a small team around you, but most don't. So I think that that's the future.
That's the future, the video.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that, because I started with a video, with a TV project, and I would like to continue doing it on YouTube, actually, because I still have this passion for camera, you know, and I see that now it's a perfect timing to come back, because I really miss it, despite I was so afraid to be on the video when I started, and now it like became a big passion for me. So yeah, anyway, what do you think, like you touched on this topic in your speech, but still I want to delve more in this. Who do you think is more powerful to set a new fashion trend? Exactly, talking about the fashion trend. A big celebrity or a social influencer?
I think I'm probably a little biased, but I also think the data really speaks for itself. And I showed that data earlier about, we watched what happened after certain influencers posted trends during Fashion Week, and we just saw these skyrocketing spikes. And I think even if you think back 7 or 8 years ago, do you remember when Us Weekly, like the tabloids were huge, and basically anything that you saw a Jessica Alba wear, or, you know, Paris Hilton, global stars that I'm not even thinking of, they would be posted in the tabloids, and those trends would just sell out. And now we see these same celebrities pretty much posted in the tabloids, and nobody cares what they're wearing. Yeah. We don't talk about that anymore. No. The conversation has shifted to the influencers. They've taken hold of that, they're owning it, and they're much more in control of it. And it's a lot less contrived, because I think with celebrities, everyone knows at this point they've hired stylists, and it's very, very, it's manufactured. And the most successful influencers, they're still spontaneity, and people respond to that.
Mm-hmm. So which celebrities do you think have managed to become cool social influencers? Because not everyone did.
I mean, this is so embarrassing, but like nobody can move product like the Kardashians. Anything they touch is just, true. You know, I don't want to say I endorse it. I certainly don't. Sure. But I think that it speaks to, they are the most savvy celebrities in terms of social influence. They really understood how to translate a brand from nothing to television, to products in stores, and now to social media. I think another really, really successful one is Jessica Alba. Yes. If you think about what she's done from a movie career to creating that product line, The Honest Company, those of you who don't know, it's in the US, people are basically allowed to put whatever they want into beauty products, and everything is poisonous and it's terrible. And Jessica Alba used her social influence to create a product line based on transparency and safety. And so in a very different way, created a conversation through social media that wouldn't have been able to happen without social.
True. And at ShopStyle, do you still have more content generated by social media influencers or by celebrities?
So it used to be 100% celebrities. I mean, ShopStyle used to be owned by Pop Sugar, which essentially used to be a celebrity tabloid, for better or worse, but friendly, or like a really nice people. And now it is 100% influencers. We do not typically integrate celebrity content at all into the shopping funnel, but we do integrate social influence. And we see that people are between 10 and 12x more likely to make a purchase when they see a trend styled on a fashion influencer, and we don't see any difference at all when we post that same trend on celebrities.
I see.
Yeah.
And what are the trends within the brands when they start to work with social media influencers? So whom they want to work with. So can you elaborate on that? Because it's a very interesting topic, I think.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that brands have a really interesting relationship with influencers, and there's like the stages of brands working with influencers. And the first is denial. They don't know how they feel about this. They want to control their message. Influencers mean letting go of the voice and the language and like the very specifics and the styling. And there's this element of, you just don't know what they're going to do. So the first is like denial. I don't want to endorse this. I don't want to be involved. The second is a little bit of acceptance. We'll engage with these influencers who we know fit our exact aesthetic. We're very comfortable with their voice. We trust them completely. We've met them in person. And then they realize they're just speaking to their audience. They're already speaking to people who know about their brand. They're not engaging any new customers. They're not getting any new brand affinity. They're just hammering the same message home to the same people who are already shopping from their brand. And then finally, that's when they open up. And then they'll come to us and talk about data, and they'll talk about who has a high conversion rate, who drives a lot of traffic, who might there be some overlap with the style of this brand or the message of this brand, but not 100%. So that way you can reach new audiences. And I think that evolution has taken a short amount of time in the scheme of the world, but forever in terms of when you think about social media. And this is all 5 or 6 years old. There are brands who are just now establishing their social influence programs and their social influencer relationships, which is baffling to me. I mean, you missed the boat. Like the influencers who are the most famous, who are working with smaller brands years and years ago, like those influencers are unattainable now. Those influencers cost as much as celebrities to engage. So it's been very interesting.
I see. So I think I will start with my presentation, because afterwards you will ask me questions and then we'll have a discussion, right? Because we can run out of time because we've been talking so much and it was so interesting for us to share our knowledge. So now I need to open my presentation. I don't know if someone will help me on that or not. Just one moment. Just one moment. Cici, do you know? Yes, here is my presentation.
Thank you.
I don't know how to open it. Yeah?
Is this you?
Yes, that's mine.
Oh, it's in French.
Ouvrir. Like this, yes? No. Sorry for that. Like this, cool. So I will talk on the future of influencer marketing too, of course, but I would like to share my story as being an influencer, like I would say micro-influencer, using your notions about influencing. So actually, to be the influencer was not my goal at any point of my career, despite I started as being a journalist. So I was doing my own TV show for 6 years. And of course, it's a public job. But when I started back in the Ukraine, we didn't have so many social networks. So it was more on the TV, and it was quite different. And the TV worked very differently in the Ukraine, so it was not so engaging as it is in America, for example. because I was traveling a lot, I met so many people, journalists, buyers, and I managed to bring them all to Ukraine because I was proud of my country, and it was interesting for me to show my country to all these professionals in fashion. And we established the Fashion Week in the Ukraine, which became an international event, and very international because of those people who started to visit it. And because afterwards the revolution happened in the Ukraine, I'm sure you heard about this, we had so many people asking us, what else can we do for the Ukrainian designers and for you? Because your designers are so significant and so talented. So they all started to write more and more about our story, about what did I do and what me and my team did, and about particular designers. So it all grew to become the most important fashion event in Eastern Europe. So we have designers from many different countries to come to showcase in Kiev, to show their collections. And that was really interesting to see how the local event can become a big international case, because we definitely became a case when the small country, small comparing to Russia or America, is occupying its place on the world's fashion map. And that's what me and my team did. We put Ukraine on the world's fashion map. It was a country which was never there before, despite Ukraine has amazing women, amazing talents, amazing designers. And so that's why I was acknowledged to be as one of the most influential people in fashion by Business of Fashion twice in a row. Then Forbes 30 under 30 list, it's the American Forbes version. And of course, I was using a lot of my social channels when the Fashion Week was established already. And people, like some negative comments about our Fashion Week were actually that we created a Facebook project, which is not bad, you know? If you create a successful Facebook project, it's amazing. So
it's especially impressive now, considering how saturated Facebook is. It's an incredible challenge, I think, to have any penetration on social media, and that you've done that now in like the last few years is absolutely incredible.
Exactly. But people in Ukraine still didn't understand that the power is in social networks. So basically all that young audience which was coming from Facebook to our event, they now became the spenders. So they now buy the clothes of those designers.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Typically, where is your social audience based?
You mean in which social network or
globally.
geographically?
Yeah, geographically.
So of course for Mercedes-Benz Key Fashion Days, it's more in the Ukraine. But my my audience, I think it's more Ukraine, Russia, and it's strange, but America. That's what I see. Yeah, that's what I see in my Instagram.
I feel like one thing that's happened is as social influence has become more and more saturated in America, American audiences are seeking that next fix for inspiration. And what's so interesting about what you're doing is there's this opportunity on a really global level because the story is so different than the same fashion brands that we see over and over in the United States.
Thank you so much, Hilary. And that's what I started to understand now by traveling and seeing so many people. And I understand that our story is really very different. Despite we always thought that being from Ukraine is a kind of disadvantage, but it's not. It's an advantage to be from a very different market, to have a very different perspective culturally and even technically. And just we have a different story. And that's amazing. That's what we can use actually to promote ourselves. And that's why when we established the showroom together with my business partners, which now sells Ukrainian and Eastern European designers to the buyers, so it's a B2B business. So we sell our designers to the stores like Barney's, Bergdorf, Selfridges, Saks, and many other stores. And we work with more than 30 countries around the world. So basically when they come to our showroom, they're searching for the new talents, which is also incredible, of course, because they want to see the new talents from the Eastern Europe. And now all the big stores, they are ready to sell actually the clothes from the kind of no-name designers, but which look so differently from, say, Chanel or Louis Vuitton, because everyone who is spending money, they already bought all the big brands. And now they just want to spice up their wardrobes with the new clothes by younger designers. Justine, I don't know your password. So, yeah. Someone needs to help us on that. So basically, yes, and it was always in the social media. So we were always promoting our showroom, our designers, and of course I was using my Instagram a lot. And because I was attending all the fashion weeks, that's my Instagram account, because I was attending all the fashion weeks and fashion photographer, not fashion photographers, street style photographers, they were taking pictures of me. And I was wearing lots of Ukrainian designers, and like nobody actually
You looked
realized.
different.
Yes, I looked very different. So I always wanted to match like some big names with the clothes by young Ukrainian designers, and it got attention. So people, street style photographers, were taking a lot of pictures of me, and that's how more and more people got like they understood my style, and that's how they knew me actually, because I was everywhere in the media, in the street style reports. And that's how I also managed to put our designers on the map, because I was wearing something, buyers loved it, and they just followed me on Instagram, and they saw where the showroom is located, and they came in by the designers.
What was the first big break? When did you realize that you were really onto something that was unique?
So basically, the designers here in the audience, she's sitting front row, but she created the T-shirts. That's Anna. She created a very funny T-shirts with maybe you even know them. I'm not a blogger, front row only. So it's like the T-shirts with the phrases from the fashion world. So basically, it was a kind of collaboration, and we all came up with the idea. And she realized she released this series of T-shirts under her label, Anna K. And I was wearing it to the Luisa Via Roma party. I'm not a blogger, to the bloggers party. It was like 3 years ago, I think. So it was quite a while ago.
It's not 3 years ago.
Yes, really?
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. It was quite a while. So, and because there were so many media there, and they were all taking pictures of me wearing that T-shirt, and the next day we had 3 buyers coming and saying, we saw it on Instagram. We saw this T-shirt you was wearing on Instagram, so we're placing the order.
So what's so interesting to me about this is that I think I was speaking so much about the actual consumer purchasing from Instagram, but I had never really thought about the fact that the fashion buyers are also being inspired by Instagram and making those purchases. That's so fascinating, because that's at the higher up level than the actual consumer.
Than the actual consumer, and that's right. So like we're always asking buyers, because we are in talks with so many of them. Like we just finished our showroom yesterday, and we had 50 meetings with the buyers all over the world, and we always ask them, where do you search for the new designers? And there is one answer: it's Instagram. It's like either it's word of mouth or it's Instagram. So they see new brands on Instagram. That's why they follow the influencers. And there are some micro influencers who are always like showing new designers. So that's a very interesting story to see how it all develops, and how you can use the social networks not only for the big audience but for B2B business, which is a completely different thing. So that's how I was using Facebook, but I'm I have an official page on Facebook, but I'm not developing it so much. So I'm more posting on my personal profile, and I have more followership on my personal profile rather than my official page, because on my personal profile, of course, I'm always like sharing more authentic things.
It comes back to authenticity and connection, and I think that what we see is that audiences, they want a perceived personal connection to the purchases they make. It makes us feel, I think, just less alone in this world.
Exactly. So that's why I'm always updating like my Instagram, which is linked to my official page on Facebook, and my personal profile on Facebook, which I always write differently, because it's a different approach for me. And I told about More Dash Showroom, and basically someone who wants to know more about that, you can take a picture of this slide, and that's like all the commands from Vogue Italy or British Vogue, which accomplished what we did in fashion, and the personal story of myself and building Kiev as a world's fashion capital. And of course, it was always a dream, but we didn't think, the same as with your account, we didn't think that it will become so. We will achieve this goal so quickly, that we will put the Kiev on the world's fashion map. I was a writer for Style.com for 3 years. I was doing the style map contribution. I don't know if you remember that project they did. So I was writing from Ukraine. So I was the only one to update on everything what was happening in the Ukraine. And some of my materials on Style.com, they reached like a global popularity, like they had 4,000 likes. And for 1 month, it was the most read material on Style.com I did. But it was about Florence. It was not about Ukraine. But still, it was good, You could still see the time from Kiev.
Yes, and you can also, I think that there's the lens of through which you view the style, that even if you're in Florence with a number of other fashion influencers who are coming from New York or out Los Angeles or other places in Europe where there's a unique point of view, and I think that that's one of the most interesting things is that Eastern Europe is so underrepresented in the world of fashion, and as you said, you found a niche, and I think that that's an important theme and it's an important theme in general in influence, is that success comes from knowing your niche and really owning it and really you know your brand and your story better than anyone else does, and if your brand and your story has a unique point of view that's different than other people's, that's very interesting. It's
True.
yeah.
That's absolutely true. I absolutely agree with you, despite we're coming from the different markets,
Yeah.
etc. So we have the same picture and the perception. And of course, I did a number of projects with different fashion houses, so I wanted to show you the result. The one I did was Bulgari. The first picture was done in Milan, the one on your right, and the second one was done in Kiev, and it was two separate projects, but it still was one brand, Bulgari, which approached me to do the pictures for their social networks. So that's why how they want to update the social networks, because they want to show kind of different customers. It's still the ring from yeah, exactly. So that's what I was doing with them, and it was interesting to contribute to their social networks. And they didn't want to use big celebrities, but they wanted to use personalities, and that's what I think is so important for the brands.
And that's
the
what we're
personality.
talking about. So can you talk a little bit about why a brand like Bulgari that's so internationally known, it's also so luxury. And I think that, at the luxury level, one of the things that we see the most is that, especially when you're talking about conversions on sales, you invest in influencers and you are not going to see a return on your ad spend in the luxury market. It is all about impressions and an end audience engagement. So why would a brand like Bulgari want to work with influencers versus a known celebrity?
I think because they just want to have a different personal story behind a person. And especially because everyone knows that if you endorse celebrity, they pay the celebrity. And maybe in my case, I chose Bulgari. People normal audience, they can think that I really went and buy that ring because I really loved it. So that's why I think they want to engage a different type of people. And if someone reads my story and someone doesn't know me and they see the picture on Bulgari social networks and they read my story, they understand that I'm a person working in fashion for more than 10 years. So I have an amazing experience. So something which I choose means that I did think about that before buying that and before choosing that. So I think that's why it became important, as they're still working with the celebrities, right? So they're not canceling anything they do with the celebrities. They just add another communication channels and another audience they're working with. And through my audience, they can also receive some new people who will like Bulgari potentially, because of course I'm interested to publish all those pictures on my social accounts saying that here I am wearing Bulgari. And the second picture actually where I'm wearing the white dress was done with Vogue Ukraine. So it's always, through also engaging the bigger media, so they understand that it's probably different point of context and only altogether it will work. That's how it is usually. Also, I did the project with Cartier with two friends of mine. It was also the project with Ukrainian Vogue and Cartier. So they wanted to find a proper people who would wear the Cartier ring. And actually my portrait here is small. And then when you tap on the portrait, you read a story about how brave I am. So it's very far from Cartier and what they do, but they just want to engage, to have more engagement through different narrative. Yeah. So that's what they're looking for. I think bigger brands, they want to find the different narrative, because everyone is using kind of the same story, right, and you should be different, right, through different people and personalities. Don't you agree on that, Hilary?
I think 100%. I think that speaks to exactly what I was sort of saying earlier, is that I think we're all just so ad blind to pop-up advertisements on the internet and billboards that we see on the street, and that the only way for brands to truly engage with audiences is for people to have a reason to click, or for people to have a reason to read, or for people to have a reason to look. And in order to do that, you need to engage in a way that feels personal, but also that's going to resonate with that audience, where it's something that they want to read about or look at. Yeah. And that's personal stories. Everyone wants a personal connection.
True. Yeah.
How do you see the conflict of interest, because you were Bulgari and then you
Cartier.
Cartier?
Yes, yes.
How did the brand take it, or they were okay that you do kind of a same franchise, the same
I think they were okay with that because they chose me. So they looked into my profile, they understood what I was doing before. And for them, it's even good, you know, they're always looking at what the competitors do. So for example, if Bulgari started to work with me, so that means that Cartier can also start because I have this kind of luxury audience who are following me. If I only work with Zara or H&M, for example, they understood that probably it wouldn't work for me and for them to start working with me because my audience is more about mass market product and it's only about the audience. So if they see that, okay, if I have Bulgari, so maybe I have the clients who can potentially buy Cartier. So I think for them, they always analyze, but if they start working with a person, it can be that you work with their competitors and they're more than okay with that.
And to build upon what Daria was saying, what we see at ShopStyle is that brands are a little bit less sensitive now to influencers and even celebrities working with their competitors because I think that they understand that the way the consumer shops is less about brand loyalty than it used to be, and it's more about, again, perceived personal connection and attachment to the product itself. So if I'm someone who purchases, you know, an Hermes ring, for example, that doesn't preclude me from going and buying a ring from Cartier and probably wearing it on the same hand because I think personal style is about mixing and matching and making that statement. So to build upon what Daria is saying, if the audience is right and ripe to be marketed to within the luxury or even contemporary space, then you want them mixing and matching your products with your competitors.
True. Recently, like, you have a second story? We need to we have only 2 minutes, yes? So
Yeah,
I will
Q&A
pass
after.
through my Walmart story because it's not about influencing, it's that we discussed with moderator that it will be interesting to tell you. But you can read it on my website, dariusdarius.com, and I will start to upload the English version. So if you're interested, you will see that. How I met Donna Karan and people behind Walmart, that was another interesting experience. So basically we need to finish as far as I understood. So Cici, you can ask us still, you have
Yes,
questions to ask.
I think the audience has questions to ask you. And also you could tell us about your experience in Washington, you know, recently. We'd love to hear. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah,
and then
yeah, sure.
I'll pass the microphone.
So I went actually to, this is the Walmart story. So I went to have an internship with Walmart, but first I was in Washington because this program is about women leadership. And I was very lucky to be included as one of 20 girls around the world. And we all went together first to Washington, where we received a lot of knowledge on women leadership, on personal power, and how to make speeches and all of this. And we went to White House, we met with Ivanka Trump and all the Trump advisors, women. And for us, it was important to understand how they cope business and professional and personal life, and to learn from them and to ask all the questions we could ask. So it was an amazing experience. And then I went to Arkansas, Bentonville, where I spent 2 weeks with the women VPs in Walmart. And that was another interesting business experience, but not related to the influencer marketing at all. So I'm briefly talking on that, and we can, of course, answer all the questions you have.
Hi.
Hi.
Being a marketer for many, many years in the influencer program, and you said trust, you know, customers trust customers. What happens, and this is something I go over constantly, what happens when consumers begin to realize that these influencers are being paid?
They know. I think that that is.
I mean, I know that they know.
So there's a few things happening, and I'll speak specifically what's happening in the American market because I think that the world is going to follow. Right. Yeah. The Federal Trade Commission, the FTC in the United States, which monitors making sure that it's clear and noted clearly whenever something is an advertisement, is cracking down on influencers in a big way. And I mentioned the Kardashians earlier, and I cannot believe I'm speaking about them. It's so embarrassing. But this is all caused by the Kardashians, that they're like promoting all of these products left and right and like pretending that they eat these gummy vitamins like they clearly do not. Their hair is extensions. It's, you know, it's preposterous. But anyway, what has happened is that there are now very strict laws about disclosure when it comes to advertisements. And we were all worried, and our influencers were really worried. Oh God, when I start disclosing and hashtag ad and hashtag this, that engagement was going to go down. And we've actually seen no effect. And the reason, I think, is because we were speaking about this earlier, separately from what I do for a living. I have a separate platform that has almost 100,000 followers, and I won't get into that now because it's a dog, but it's a very cute dog. She's actually here in Paris. She couldn't make it to the conference today, but building that audience took me 2 years and blood, sweat, and tears. And I think the same is true for every person of social influence who's not a celebrity. You do not wake up one day and become Instagram famous or social media famous or your blog has a ton of traffic. It is not an accident. It is a lot of work. Any kind of violation of that trust with your community is so obvious and results in loss of engagement, loss of following. You are shooting your brand in the foot as an influencer the moment you become inauthentic. And so I think that what's really cool is that, and I see this firsthand all the time, influencers will say no. I'll say, hey, so-and-so brand wants to give you $10,000 to work on this project. It's not on brand for me, I can't accept the money. And I do think that as long as influencers respect their audiences, the FTC guidelines, the disclosure, the audiences knowing that the influencers are paid, it's still, they want the influencers to be able to make enough money to keep doing what they do so that way they can influence and show them cool things. So it really is, that's where the trust has to be, is that the influencers can never forget that their audience is their most valuable asset and treat them as such. And as long as they respect that, we have not seen any drop off in engagement. It's the influencers who don't respect it.
And that was really my question. How are the influencers really looking at that and saying exactly that? No, this doesn't fit my brand. I'm not just going to do it for the money. They're taking that on, that responsibility on themselves.
Yeah, and I think that if you think
Which is
about,
great.
Yeah, and to the point that we were discussing earlier, that influencers are essentially, I am an influencer, but I am one media company. I'm a creative director. I'm a photographer. I'm all of these things in one. But I'm also, the editorial. I'm the editor-in-chief. I decide what's on brand for me. I understand, I know the data, I know the analytics behind what resonates with my audience, what brands, what colors, what styles. And I'm not gonna stray in a way that's going to challenge them, in a way that's disrespectful.
I agree. What can I add? Yes, you answered the question.
I feel that nowadays the influencers business is a little bit overcrowded. So do you think it is still possible to be an influencer nowadays, like starting now?
I think that it's always a question of authenticity, and we've been discussing it during our talk, because if you have your own particular style, people will be following you, even if they already have so many people in their Instagram stream. But if it's something very unique and special to your style and something unique you can share with your audience, that will be appreciated. So I think that's always a room for new people. It's the same with the designers, for example. You say, oh my God, how many fashion designers exist in the world? But if someone talented comes into the market, everyone wants to buy the clothes. So it's about authenticity and the personal style.
I 100% agree. And I think that influencers now need to be prepared for a little bit more of a fight to get that bandwidth. You need to have a little bit more tenacity than maybe you did 7 years ago, just starting out. But I think as long as you approach it from that point of view and stop looking at other influencers, don't let them influence you. You must find your own unique voice and point of view and your niche. Really define what that niche is and know what your target is. And also pay attention to analytics. What do people like the most? What do people comment on the most? And follow that.
Yeah.
Hi, very quick question to Hilary. Could you explain a little bit more about the model that you built for influencers to get to monetize their content? I think it's an affiliate program. Could you explain how it works and the link with the B2C website, ShopStyle as well?
Absolutely. So more or less, I used the example of searching for black boots before. So if you go on to ShopStyle.com and search for my acne black boots, and those are going to come up and you're going to click through, and that's going to take you to maybe acne.com. ShopStyle receives a percentage of that sale. So what we've done is built tools where influencers can create hyperlinks for their content, whether it's social media or on their blog, where again, they also receive, we split our commission with those influencers. So if you scale that, there are influencers who are making 6-7 figures just through affiliatizing their links alone. Any other questions about how we do that, or?
No, that's clear, I think.
Perfect.
Hi, I want to ask you, well, I'm not very into fashion bloggers, but I do follow a lot of makeup bloggers. And I think the most important thing about influencers is that they are a point of inspiration for all the people. But sometimes I can see, like with makeup bloggers, they are using like very expensive palette, let's say Urban Decay. And you see how they are doing their makeup, whatever. But maybe you can recreate that look with cheaper products. Is it the same problem in fashion, that maybe you're promoting like a very expensive dress, and then the people can find more or less the same dress in Primark or Zara?
That's, I think, what happens. Like, you should be an inspiration for the majority of people, and that means like not everyone can afford a very expensive product. And that's why, for me, it was always important to mix. So I always buy something in the like Topshop or this kind of stores and other stores, and I mix them with either the young designers or with the products from the bigger brands. But I think it's more about the tricks on how you can style the things, no matter from which stores they are. And it's the same with beauty too, I think, right?
100%. And from a tool perspective, we really try and support that. We're actually building toward helping influencers make suggestions of similar items, like through image recognition software. So that way, if I'm a beauty blogger and I post a lipstick that's, $55 US, that it might, inside our tool, it'll serve up similar colors and similar lipsticks. So that way they can easily link to additional options that are at different price points, because we see that is the quickest path to conversion, and our most successful bloggers who are making those tremendous amounts of money are really doing a great job providing options at various price points.
All of this is driven by search. So can you talk a little bit about your search engines for your platform?
Absolutely. So search happens after inspiration, I think, is the most important thing, and what influence provides is the point of inspiration. And so if I see, I've already complimented Daria on her shoes, so I've been inspired, so then I go on to search, and I'll search for the ballet flats with, and I think that that's the really important thing, is that if it's actually driven by, search is driven by inspiration and not the other way around. And that's part of the reason that ShopStyle as a platform, we need our 14,000 influencers to be creating content. Without them and those spikes and surges and trends, it's just, it's just a comparison shopping engine that's pure function. And we all know that the experience of purchasing fashion, beauty, lifestyle, it's so much more of it's an emotional experience. So you need that point of inspiration that happens with influence.
Well, that was it for the day. Thank you so much, ladies, for sharing about the future of influencer marketing. I hope you find this session insightful. Did you? I did. Did you learn anything today? Awesome. Round of applause for Hilary, Sloan, and Daria Shapovalova.
Thank you so much for having us. This was so much fun.